Hey everyone, Javelin here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be going over and further theorizing some of the possibilities of what's to come with the future Elden Ring DLC. We've just passed the 1-year anniversary release of the game, and it's been a great year for the company From Software and video games as a whole. I'd also like to congratulate From Software on 20 million copies of Elden Ring sold, which helped them achieve such great success in the past year. This will be the part 2 video to my first DLC speculation video, as I'll still be supporting what I said in that one and sort of building onto it. I've learned a lot through making my lore videos thus far and have some more things I'd like to talk about. Please subscribe if you're new or returning, as it would greatly help the channel's growth, and without any further delay, let's get started. So I want to start off by saying I'm not completely dismissing my own theories, but it's beginning to seem like we may possibly get a DLC pertaining to the Eternal Cities, the Ul, Liurnia, Celia, Ordina, Mikola, and Godwyn, which I did talk about in the first DLC speculation video. The connections between the Eternal Cities' influence in the Academy, Celia, and Ordina are quite vast. And it also seems that the Eternal Cities were allied, in quotes, with Mikola in a way, as the bulk of the Black Knife assassins reside in Ordina, which also has heavy Albinauric presence. They seemingly guard the waygate that transports you to the Halig Tree. This could also tie in the birthing droplet referenced at the end of Latenna's questline. The Black Knives also served Ranni by assassinating Godwyn, so it's quite possible that we have an alliance there as well. I'd also like to mention the cult of the Fire Giants, Aokid, and the connections they had with the astrologers. You can check out my videos on the Fire Giants and my recent videos surrounding the Halig Tree, where I discuss the connections more in those videos, although I do not directly reference them. As a whole, I believe the community has theorized and or confirmed that Mikola is not dead. Rather, he is sleeping and blood still runs through his veins. This brings me to Mohg's dialogue when we defeat him, that he can still see the coming of the Mohgwyn dynasty. Mohg himself came forth from a pool of Mikola's blood, so there's a possibility that part of his being still resides within him. I will be discussing Mohg and more in my video on the Omen, so be sure to subscribe for that in the future. This brings me to the beginning of a possible DLC. In my last video, I said that Mikola could wake up and grab us, bringing us into the cocoon and putting us to sleep, transporting us to his dream world. While this is still a possibility, it does feel more like the answer is right in front of us in the cutscene before the fight with Mohg. We could see ourselves going into a pool of Mikola's blood and being transported to some strange place that is quite possibly inside Mikola, where we may fight Mohg again, as he is likely inhabiting Mikola's body still. We could also take Mikola's hand and be transported as well. These are all very likely, and I'd like to point to the beginning of the Dark Souls DLC, where we approach the portal in Darkroot and Manus lashes out and grabs us, dragging us into Ulasil. It may seem like a stretch, but they did recycle a lot of their previous ideas and refresh them, which is why I bring this up. Godwyn was the victim of the Night of the Black Knives, and during the quest lines of Ranni, Fia, Rajir, and Dee, we discover the Hallowbrand Wheel of Death by way of aiding Ranni and bringing the one half to Fia, who sits in front of Godwyn's body. We enter the dream of Godwyn and fight Fortisax, which then gives us the full wheel. Godwyn died in soul, which means his body is festering, growing, and spreading the death root throughout the lands between. We feed the death root to Geraint, who we also discover is Malekith, who guards destined death. We can also see the spread of the death root has reached Farum Azula, which in my mind confirms that it was definitely connected to the lands between at one point, and the death root was possibly the reason it was disconnected. I want to mention that this is quite thematic and alludes to death being inevitable, and that attempting to seal destined death was a mistake from conception, as death is a natural part of life and cannot be avoided completely. I believe we may see ourselves re-entering Godwyn's dream and exploring that world inside, and quite possibly finding the source of the phenom of the spreading death root. Lastly, I'd like to bring up the more recent posts on the Elden Ring Twitter account. We have this one that says, "Seek this grace under a star-filled sky, hidden deep beneath the lands between," and the image shows the Mohgwyn Palace as well as the below the well site of grace. Next we have D. Hunter of the Dead with his dialogue line, "Someone or something threatens the sanctity of the Golden Order and must be eradicated." Next is a post of Godric the Grafted, which I feel is inconsequential, but could sort of reference the Stormlord, and we do see some of the troops of the Stormlord down in the Eternal Cities. Next is the Tibia summons, who are used by the Tibia Mariners, who are directly connected to the Death Root. We then have this post about Alberic, hinting to what drove him to madness, and lastly, a post about the Bloodhound Knights, explaining their skill set and that they stay loyal to the master they choose for life. I can't help but feel that the bulk of these tweets and posts hint to what's being discussed and developed in the studio, and these recent ones along with the past ones are all hints as to what we may see in the future of Elden Ring, whether it be DLC or the next installment in the series. If you made it to the end of this video, you have my thanks. I'd like to give a special shout out to Dim, who I discussed a lot of this video with the same day that I wrote it. It's always nice to have a second opinion, and he shares the same intuitive passion for the lore of stories in video games as I do. I apologize for the shortness of this video, but it is the follow-up video to my first DLC speculation, and that one was short as well. Be sure to subscribe for future content, like and comment your thoughts down below. I will see you in the next one.